Attention passionate Montreal, Canadiens fans. Latest news, something big is happening in the Atlantic Division and it could shake up the entire conference. We're talking about a direct impact on Montreal Canadiens' path to another Stanley Cup run, a power shift that could leave a division rival stumbling for years. We're bringing this to you firsthand. But before that, if you're a true Montreal Canadiens fan, subscribe to the channel to strengthen this passion even more. Show that you're also part of this family. Let's help each other reach 1,000 subscribers. Share with your FRINDS and Montreal Canadiens fans. Let's get to the news. So guys, we've got some incredible, and honestly pretty surprising, news coming out of the NHL about a trade that involved one of the league's most talked about players. And for us Canadiens fans, it's definitely a story that's going to have ripple effects, not just for this season, but for the future of our beloved team. The trade was centered around defenseman Noah Dobson, a key piece for the New York Islanders, being sent to Montreal in a blockbuster move during the recent NHL draft. Now, this isn't just a minor transaction. It's part of a much bigger picture that the Islanders and their new management, led by GM Matthew Darche, have been planning behind the scenes. In exchange for Dobson, Montreal sent over 2 high-value draft picks, the 16th and 17th overall from the previous draft, which the Canadiens had owned. Along with those picks, Montreal also received forward Emil Heineman. Now, these aren't just pieces of paper or prospects, they're part of a strategic move that could set the Canadiens up for a more competitive future. But what's really fascinating is what was happening behind the scenes, especially with the Islanders' plans and aspirations in this draft. You see, according to insider reports from the very reliable David Pagnotta, the Islanders weren't just looking to bolster their roster with draft picks. They had a specific target in mind. Their plan was to use those picks to move up in the draft order and select a promising young American prospect named James Hoggins, a native of Long Island. Now, for those of us who follow the draft and the prospects closely, Hoggins has been seen as a player with a lot of potential. But the real prize that the Islanders were eyeing was the 4th overall pick, owned by the Utah Mammoth. And that's where the story gets even more interesting. Reports suggest that the Utah team was very interested in acquiring star forward Matthew Barzal from the Islanders. I mean, imagine the magnitude of that potential trade. Barzal, one of the most talented and versatile centers in the league, moving to Utah in exchange for that coveted 4th overall pick. According to sources, Utah's general manager, Doug Armstrong, was very aggressive in his pursuit, and he was pushing hard to bring Barzal into his team's fold. The trade offer was reportedly quite substantial, involving Barzal and the 4th pick, which would have been a game-changer for Utah and the entire league. But here's the kicker. The Islanders, despite their interest in moving up to secure Hoggins, weren't willing to meet Utah's asking price for Barzal. The demand was simply too high, especially for a player of Barzal's caliber. So the Islanders opted to keep their picks and instead selected Victor Eklund and Kashon Acheson in the draft, players with promising futures but not quite the star power of Barzal. Meanwhile, Hoggins, that promising young prospect from Long Island, ended up being picked by the Boston Bruins with the 7th overall selection. That's a pretty eye-opening development, especially considering the Islanders' initial plans. For us Canadiens fans, this entire saga highlights just how much complexity and strategy goes into NHL trades and draft decisions. It's not just about one player going from one team to another. It's about the underlying negotiations, the ambitions of teams, and how these moves can ripple through the league for years to come. The fact that the Islanders were so close to pulling off a blockbuster involving Barzal and that 4th overall pick shows how high stakes the draft really is. It's a game of chess. And sometimes, the biggest moves are just a miscalculation or a high asking price that changes everything. Now, bringing this back to Montreal, I think it's important to recognize what this means for us. The Canadiens, under the leadership of Kent Hughes and the scouting department, have been actively looking to bolster their core for a run at the Stanley Cup. Landing Noah Dobson is a significant step in that direction. Dobson is a young, talented defenseman with a lot of upside, and his addition gives our blue line a shot of youth and skill that we desperately need. His offensive instincts and ability to move the puck will be crucial in the coming seasons, especially as Montreal tries to build a more competitive roster around emerging talents like Cole Caulfield and Juraj Slavkovsky. But beyond just Dobson, this trade also signals the Canadiens' strategic approach to the draft and player development. They're not just looking for cheap prospects or future assets. They're aiming to bring in players who can contribute immediately and help turn the team into a playoff contender. The fact that Montreal was able to acquire a defenseman of Dobson's caliber, even amidst the chaos of the draft and the high-stakes negotiations involving other teams, shows that Hughes and his team are playing their cards smartly. It's about building a foundation, one that can sustain success for years, not just a quick rebuild. And if we look at the broader picture, the Atlantic Division is shaping up to be fiercer than ever. Teams like the Florida Panthers, Tampa Bay Lightning, and Toronto Maple Leafs are all making moves, and the Islanders' aggressive draft strategy is a clear sign they're not content with just getting by. They want to be a dominant force again, and that means their front office is willing to make bold moves, even if it means passing on star players like Barzal in the short term for future gains. For us Canadiens fans, it's an exciting time because it shows how competitive the league is becoming. Every move, every trade, every draft pick is part of a larger chess game. And even though we didn't see Barzal move to Utah or the Islanders pull off that blockbuster deal, the fact that these negotiations nearly happened just adds to the thrill of this offseason. It also reinforces that Montreal, with its recent moves and strategic draft picks, is positioning itself to be a major player in the coming years. The addition of Dobson, the smart draft choices, and the ongoing development of young talent all point toward a team that's serious about contending again. And let's not forget the importance of the fans in all this. We've been waiting patiently, supporting through ups and downs, and now seeing these kinds of moves, it feels like the Canadiens are finally on the right track to return to their winning ways. The team's management is clearly playing the long game, and that's something we should all be excited about. The offseason is still unfolding, and there are plenty of rumors, trades, and surprises yet to come. But one thing is for sure, the Montreal Canadiens are back in the conversation, and the future looks promising. Pause here just for a second. If you want the YouTube algorithm to keep recommending the latest Montreal Canadiens news to you, it's super important that you leave a like on this video. Go ahead, it's quick and it makes a big difference. Thank you. Now let us continue with the big reveal. So in summary, while the trade involving Noah Dobson might seem like a straightforward blue line addition, it's actually part of a complex web of negotiations and strategic moves that could reshape the landscape of the Atlantic Division. The Islanders' near move for Barzal and the high-stakes draft dealings show how intense and competitive this offseason has been. For Montreal, it's a sign that the team is serious about building a contender, not just for today, but for the seasons ahead. Dobson's acquisition complements their vision of a solid, young, and dynamic blue line that can carry them deep into the playoffs. The future is bright, and this offseason proves that the Canadiens are no longer just rebuilding, they're reloading for real success. And now, Montreal Canadiens fans, I want to hear from you. What's your take on this? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Your opinion matters so much to us and to the Montreal Canadiens. And don't forget, I'll be back soon with more updates, so stay tuned for the latest Montreal Canadiens news.